Call to order the meeting for whatever it is, February 11th.
February 11th.
He felt like my
At this time, we have roll call. Becky?
Becky's here.
Barbara. Here. John.
Present.
Beth.
Here.
Chris.
Here.
Michael.
Here.
Robert Jones.
Here.
Lupe. Here. We're missing Jane. We're trying to get a hold of Jane by phone. Okay, we'll get Jane.
Is Jane here by phone?
I'm trying to call her right now.
And we don't have the device.
He's got a PhD
What's that?
in physics.
Sharice is sick. She's not here today.
He's interested in white.
If we're trying to get a hold of her by phone, we're going to have the device to talk or not?
It was not working. I have plugged in and unplugged a variety of things.
Okay.
It will not cooperate. We use it for
Okay.
hours of those practices.
Jane, this is Celeste.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, we need some time. Yeah, okay.
We were there for 5 days. Yeah. But yeah.
At this time, are there any additions, corrections, or modifications to agenda?
Yes. I move that we remove 14.1, compensation performance of personnel pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2 C1 from today's meeting.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All those approve, same sign.
Aye.
Disapprove, same sign. I did disapprove. Okay. I guess we can tell you, we're just not ready to do that tonight. That's why we're removing it. Public comments. Do we have public?
Jane, this is Celeste. Are you with us then?
Can she hear?
Okay, I'm going to put you on speaker. You're at the board meeting. Here, one moment. Turn this all
Oh,
in.
we're going to do it from your phone?
That's what we got.
They work.
Jane, can you hear us?
Yeah, good.
We can hear you.
Okay, do we have any public comments, Celeste?
No.
No. Okay, moving along. Presentation, the audit report.
Yes, we are trying to get a hold of Refellow, and we used this earlier, and now it is not letting any permission to use the microphone.
So what I'm going to do then is jump right into the fray while you do that, and I will do the budget presentation.
Well, I can get my phone, you can try them on my phone.
Why don't let's do that? But I can do the budget presentation.
Okay, we're moving along to 6.2, budget process. I can tell this meeting's going to... Strange.
We're just going to be flexible and go with the flow.
Absolutely.
So, one of the most important things that we consider as we consider the budget is, of course, the strategic plan. Here are our vision and our mission statements, as you are well aware of and familiar with. So we will be using the different elements of the plan as our North Star as we develop the plan. The timeline for the plan is that this month, I'm telling you about the process, see if you have any initial questions up front. The foundation board meets next week, and we have made a request last month of them for funding for fiscal year 21, so that we'll know next week what they are committing themselves to for the library. So we'll be able to include their contributions into the draft budget that we bring you in March at the March board meeting. In April, we need you to pass the budget, then that goes to the city to be incorporated into their budgeting process, and then presentations are given to city council, and then they pass the budget in either late May or early June. So that is how everything queues up. Jane, can you hear me okay?
Are you still hearing Celeste? Jane?
I realize I'm not. Yes.
Yes, she
Okay,
is.
great.
She's hearing it.
So other things that we consider as we are developing the budget, we look at the Illinois Library Association standards, which were just published and updated. And a couple of the numbers that we look at there are guidelines they provide on wages and compensation. So the number remained the same. Library salaries and fringe benefits account for up to 70% of total of the operational budget. And then a part that has changed is the collection development number. There used to be a hard number of 12% that was their guideline to meet the state standard, and we hovered around that. But what I discovered when I was on the committee looking at the standards is that different libraries included different components into their calculations of what went into collection management. So for example, we have an acquisition staff that stamp and sticker the items. They are paid out of the regular library budget. We buy the stamps and stickers and things like that. Other libraries outsource all the materials processing, and they include all of those parts in that collection development number, and we've only been using the materials number itself. So what one can include has been clearly delineated in the new standards in a worksheet in the back. So I have no doubt that we will be more than exceeding the 12% number, and actually now it's a range from 8 to 12% as opposed to a hard number. So it includes a lot of different things, which we will give you numbers to show you apples to apples, as well as the new number, the new percentage based on including time of acquisition staff, having interlibrary loan available and things like that. So those are a couple things that we'll be looking at from the state standards. We are looking, of course, at raises for staff. We have a pay scale that includes steps as you have number of years in service at the library. And then we're working with the city on the wage line increase as far as what the raise to the pay scale is. Minimum wage is going up July 1. It's currently less than $10 an hour. It's going to $10 an hour. Currently, our shelver baristas, who start at the lowest pay rate of the library, make $10.5615 per hour. So they're already over minimum wage. But come January 1, minimum wage goes to $11 per hour. So mid-year, we will need to raise the pay scale for the shelver baristas. So that will be included in our figures as well. Next year, it will go up from half the year, it'll be at 11, and then it's going to bump up to 12, which will be far over what the normal, couple percent increase that we have to the pay scale every year. So we're not going to see a huge impact this year, some impact. Next year, it's going to be more significant, and by the time I talk to you next month, I'll have better figures for what next year could look like, what the impact will be. Is it time for the audit?
I've got it.
All right, then we will put a pin in this.
Okay, so we're doing all this by cell phone tonight because everything we checked out earlier isn't working. Michael, can you hear us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, can you guys?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay.
All right. So just yell at me if someone needs a question or needs to stop me talking. And thanks for having me tonight. Unfortunately, fortunately, you only hear my voice and don't see my face. So I'll be brief. First, before I get going, I just want to thank Celeste and Becky. As we can do every year, we come out, we kind of interrupt their day-to-day of running the library and basically have them pull a bunch of stuff for us, answer a lot of questions, and pretty much leave a giant mess for them to clean up. And, every year they do a great job of having everything prepared for us, making sure the audit goes as smoothly as possible. We really can't do our job correctly without their support and ability to give us everything we request. So just want to thank them first before diving into everything. So getting into the reports that we issued this year, there are two primary reports. One is the financial statements, and one is what we call a communication letter. I like to think of the financial statements, that's your report. It's your numbers, your financial information, your results. The communication letter is our report as the auditors. It's a summarization of results, findings, everything like that. So I'll start with the financial statements very quickly. Basically, this was a relatively quiet year in terms of changes, things we need to look at differently. It's fairly straightforward. Operations are fairly straightforward. In addition to looking at the Urbana Free Libraries operations, we also look at the foundation's operations and audit those numbers as well. The opinion we give, which is near the beginning of the report, basically what that states is that we give the highest level of assurance that we're able to give. And we don't look at every number, but we look at things to a degree that allows you what's called reasonable assurance, and basically saying that the information presented is reasonably assured to give a good picture of the financial health of the library. We are able to give the highest level of opinion and comfort that we can provide as auditors. So that's always a good thing. That is not always the case in a lot of places. Rather than going through all the pages of the report, there's a lot of detail in the notes and everything like that. I'd say if there's one thing to read that gives you a good distillation of everything that happened at a high level, kind of big bullet points, is to read the management's discussion analysis. It's a small handful of pages that really captures the essence of the big things. That is a good summary that I recommend everybody reads when they read the report. Obviously, feel free to read the entire 47-page document, but the MD&A probably gives you the most bang for your buck. again, the information is at 6:30, so a lot of this information and numbers you've probably seen in some fashion or another reporting from Celeste throughout the course of the year. So I won't go into any specific details, but there were no major changes in our standards or anything that was presented this year, which makes things a little simpler and straightforward and comparable to the past. So before I go to the communication letter, is there anything that anybody has questions after the financial statements at all?
Everybody's shaking their heads.
No, I can't see us, shake our
And
head.
you can't hear that.
Yeah,
You can hear it right
keep it
in.
nice and simple. And if anybody has any questions at the end or even after the meeting, obviously I'm always available to anybody with questions. So if something comes to your mind, if you're looking at it later on, don't hesitate to reach out. So the other report is the communication letter. So in addition to kind of working through your financial numbers and results for the year, we also look at your key processes, your controls, kind of how the major operations of the library function. The highest volume and dollar value of activity. So usually that's your payroll, your cash disbursements out, for example, and a couple other items as well. What we do is we usually beat those processes up and try to identify any weaknesses or gaps in the processes, identify recommendations. One of the big things that we started during last fiscal year, but really kind of took root for a full fiscal year in fiscal year 19, was the new financial accounting software. And having an updated system from the very old system allowed a significant improvement in the controls and the safeguarding around your operations. Last year, I believe we had about we had segregation of duties comments, IT comments, and financial reporting comments. That segregation of duties comments was essentially saying that a lot of people had access, a lot of people did different things. There was 3 areas that existed last year. This year, we went from having 3 what we call material weaknesses to having 1 material weakness and 1 significant deficiency, which is a massive improvement. The one financial reporting is simply the nature of the beast. We prepare the financial statements for the library, and such we're required to communicate that. It's not something I would recommend even trying to alleviate, as we're required to essentially have a CPA on staff, which isn't practical for any organization of your size. So that one is always there. It's something not to worry about. We're just required to communicate it as we're not allowed to take practicalities into consideration. We have to look at it in an ideal world of unlimited people and unlimited resources, which, as we all know, is as far from the truth for any municipality as can be. So we still need to communicate it. So that one will be there. The other one that still exists, but is vastly improved from the past, is the segregation of duties comments. The only one remaining is related to payroll, which is due to the fact that the payroll system kind of rolled on later than the rest of the new systems that came into play. So my hope is that that comment will be eliminated or further reduced next year. But our comments related to how journal entries were entered, how cash disbursements were processed, those existed in the past and they're now gone. And a lot of that goes to kind of new processes in place, new separations of responsibilities, and just a more robust financial software technology that allows you to do a lot of things you weren't in the past. It also goes in hand with an IT comment we used to carry forward both the city and the library in the past related to the old software. And just that it was an older system, didn't have a lot of the bells and whistles and security things that are pretty standard now in the modern day softwares, which now you have a new system and it allows a lot more. So we're able to eliminate a lot of those comments in the past, which is great. And no one wants to see the same comments over and over again, especially those that there was limited control over. So since changes were made, you took advantage of that and really kind of beefed up the controls and process, which is a great thing. The rest of that letter, there's nothing too crazy in there. Feel free to read if you want to learn about accounting standards. I know it's very exciting for everybody. But one of the last letters in that is kind of a culmination of different communications. The last kind of component in there essentially is a high-level summary of the results for the audit. In that those pages we communicate to you any issues we had, any major stumbling blocks on the way. It's a clean letter. It's pretty consistent with what we've seen in the past. This audit has gone fairly well. We've been able to obtain everything we've had later on. The one thing I just always like to point out is that as the board, we as auditors work for you. We work with Celeste, again, the day-to-day of the audit, and you're the ones who engage us to do this work. So we are always available to you. We do work for you, and at any point, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, we are always available. I just always like to remind at the board meeting that we are available to you, but you don't get to see us very often. So not just today, not just during the audit, but throughout the course of the year, my phone number, email. Becky and Celeste have multiple ways to get a hold of me. So obviously, if anything comes up, just don't ever hesitate to reach out. With that, again, the audit went very well this year. We saw improved results in terms of operations and processes and controls, which allowed us to eliminate some findings reported in the past. And with that, I guess if there's any questions you have.
Everyone shaking their head no?
No, thank you.
Fantastic. Well, if anything
Thank
comes
you.
up, just don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Nice summary.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Michael.
Bye.
My question, Celeste, is there copies of this that, because the letters is probably most critical.
We've got copies. Nobody wanted them, but you're welcome
Well-
to them.
I think that people ought to know that what they have to come to you to get a copy, because
Oh,
previously
no.
we've distributed.
It's, so I asked if anyone wanted a copy,
Okay.
and no one wanted a copy.
Right, okay.
I have copies for people that want them.
Okay.
They're on our website,
Okay.
through the city's website.
Okay.
So, and the copies were emailed to you. So, and they're on our website in the board packet. So there are multiple ways for people to get a hold of them, absolutely. But if anyone wants a copy, we've got more in Becky's office, but I've got one set in case anyone was curious.
Are those classified?
No, it's all on the website, it's all public.
Okay, because I've got other years, and I just wondered if I ought to be returning those.
You are welcome to do what you want with them. They're your copies.
Okay.
And we do have a master copy that Becky always
That's-
keeps, and I have my own copies as well. But the library as an institution has to keep us at.
Would you say that his tone seemed to be, for your size of organization, all these were excusing, because for years we've been concerned about the control factor and who all this, is he kind of saying, we're beyond that? Did you feel?
Well, I feel that he's acknowledging that, for example, some of the preparatory work that happens for the audit, we actually have the auditors do as part of what they're paid to do. In other institutions that are larger, they have like an accounting staff who would do that preparatory work.
Okay.
We don't have this staff to do that. Neither of us have an accounting degree. And so that is what, in part, he's acknowledging that one knock on us is that we use the auditing firm to do part of the audit. That's not going to change. So that's just an acknowledgement of the reality.
Okay. So I would say his use of the word clean is a nice word.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's a very good thing.
Good job.
And what does this mean the city of Urbana has been doing all these years? Because they had the same system, right?
They have a finance department and they have an accounting department. So they have
Yeah.
people that can do different parts of it for setup.
Okay.
And even they work tightly with the auditors because just with the Munis transition especially, there were just loose ends that needed to be tied up. And
I meant about the controls. I
Oh.
mean, I'm assuming that the controls were the same for the city. I mean, I know
actually,
that's
they were-
not,
No, it's a great
relevant, but-
question. So they, again, have a finance department and an accounting department, so places where it was Becky doing all the pieces.
Okay.
They had someone in this department or that
Got it,
department or
got
different
it.
levels of people.
To check
With
a check or
Munis. And
whatever,
then
yeah,
when this
okay.
was brought up for us, we did add different levels in so that Becky wasn't doing everything start to finish. So we added an Eleanor doing different parts and department heads, crew at different levels.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
And
Munis
you're-
helped us, but we also made some changes before Munis, and then things with IT, that again changed with Munis coming into play. So
yeah.
And you're
Okay.
right to ask, because that has been probably the biggest sticking point that we'd get on the audit, was that the control was all centralized
yeah,
and not
okay.
decentralized. So-
I'm HR, accounting, finance, all of it.
Yeah, okay.
So they spread it out.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for what you
How long did it take to present stuff? Because they used to be in here for several months.
they're in for a couple days in June, near the end of the fiscal year, asking particular kinds of questions. We give them the data there to get started, and then they come back in September-ish. They spend a couple weeks at the city and spend some time here. A good week usually.
The city system has helped us too in this process immensely, hasn't it? The fact that
The
we're
city's
part-
awesome.
Yeah, because where it used to be, we spent a long time in the audit. I'd say 3 months, didn't you?
Probably not that long,
2
but
months.
it was definitely a process.
Yeah, it was long. So this is really great.
Well, it used to be you have to physically pull the checks, the canceled checks, we have to physically pull them, present them, and the invoices and such. Now they can go into the system and see the checks, the canceled checks, they can see the invoices in the system. So that in and of itself is, I'm not physically pulling paper for them to look
Yeah.
at.
Yeah. That's good.
Great. Do we don't have to accept this, do we, the report? Or do we?
Sometimes you do. I didn't put that on the agenda, but we could
It's
accept
like a
it next
treasurer's
month.
report.
Sounds like an action.
Uh,
Move that we accept the report.
I will second it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I thank you.
If it's not on the agenda, I don't know that you can, but we can accept it next
Yeah.
month.
Didn't we change the rules that things that are, things that are completely
Agenda
non-controversial,
amendment.
we're just not going to worry about? Yeah.
Okay, Celeste, you're back on with?
I'm back on. A couple more slides for you. Ha, there we go. That's where you think, did I make my password too long? So another thing that we look at as we budget, of course, is the financial plan. This is an expired financial plan, but we were wanting to update the strategic plan, and timeline-wise, we weren't able to do a new financial plan. So when we said the strategic plan is coming through, we'll go ahead and continue to work off of the things here. So we've done a lot that were included in that 5-year financial plan, including taking a look at infrastructure pieces that were expensive that needed to be replaced and repaired, and so that's been taken care of. You, as a board, wanted to increase the percentage of our funds being spent on materials, and that was increased. So that's been going in a great direction. Programming before used to be more grant or special funds funded, and is firmly incorporated now in the budget as a regular budget line, the operations budget. Increasing teen and early child outreach, that has happened in a regular manner. RFID was implemented, and then the plan for property acquisition and future expansion. The corner lot was purchased by the foundation as part of the library campus, and we are planning for future expansion, and again, just received a very large gift that will help with that, and the foundation is orienting itself that direction as well, as part of what they do. So these are things that have been accomplished. And then we look to progress being made. So we have, one of the big expensive things to be evaluated was the 1918 historic beautiful windows, and how to work with them, being 100 years old. What you saw in the board packet this month was that Drew had someone come in and fix the plaster on the inside, and the windows on the exterior are being caulked, so that will give us a little bit more energy efficiency and lend a little bit more life to them as we continue to check out what might be some next steps about the windows. There was some progress made about the 2008 wage and benefits survey, which was done many years ago. So again, we're going to be looking at those kinds of things in a contemporary setting. Next, I recommend that we update the financial plan. And then we add some elements to it that the city is using. For example, looking at what percentage of the general operating budget do you want to have in fund balance? The financial forecast for the city was promising. It looks very good, but they also talked about the possibility of recession in the next couple of years. So if there is a downturn in the economy, or if there are changes at the state level and more tax dollars are taken off the top to local governments, which might be the case, what would that do to the city, and how might that impact the library? If property tax values go down, that definitely impacts the library. So we would be wise to take a look at, and they're looking at, they've got, let's say 15%, they're shooting for 20 or 25% to have a fund balance for the recurring expenses so that they can be in a good position. So this is something I recommend that we take a look at. We're going to look at updating the library campus plan, which will help us think about expansion and use of the space that we currently have. And then, of course, we'll be implementing the technology plan initiatives, which you approved in the tech plan last month. And then just one more slide. We'll be updating this, which is our just looking out at the different parts of the facility and what we need to save for one-time capital expenses that are, every so often, every 30 years. So not general operating, but big capital expenses. So you'll be getting a copy of that, or we will be looking at this for next month for what we tell you we want to put aside for savings because we know these expenses are coming. The roof, the air handler, the things.
On
The geothermal in the future.
Yeah, it's hopefully in the long run. On the windows, did you guys get a sort of informal quote or just rough ballpark on the acrylic inserts, which make them double pane and preserve the historic stuff? And
That is the top thing that we want to look at, but we don't have a quote yet. We haven't had the capacity to deal with that. Because the one company that we had been looking at, you had to do your own measurements. And they're weirdly shaped and
they won't give, but I bet they would give you a rough idea if you just give them.
I had a rough idea, but I don't remember what that back of the envelope number is. But yeah, that is the approach we were looking at as our first round. It seemed reasonable. Other libraries or other places have done that to keep the historic windows in place and provide that extra insulation. So you'll see more of this later. Those are the slides that I had about the budget process.
Celeste, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
One is, I'm assuming that the decision regarding Carl isn't going to affect the budget because
Yes.
they've put the money in escrow.
That
Is
is
that
correct.
correct?
Yes.
Thank
and
you.
the budget forecast, just to say Elizabeth's words, when Elizabeth Hannon, the city finance officer, talked on Monday, she said very clearly that the financial forecast they've got looking out 5 years does not include any money from hospitals that isn't already being received. So their bright outlook does not include Carl.
Does not include Carl. Okay.
It doesn't include it now.
And my second question is, in terms of looking out, I'm assuming that the foundation is looking at fundraising in that way. In other words, that's not us as this board, but that there's a plan, in other words.
And the big plan at the moment actually is looking at landscaping the corner lot and raising funds for that. The corner lot and redoing landscaping around the building, which is from 2005, with an eye to future expansion. Again, the $125,000 gift that just came in was, if you decide to, can be given to the foundation for future expansion. So they've got their eye on it, but you as a board haven't said, let's put our efforts toward this specifically, because we're a couple steps out from that, I think.
I'm concerned about having a plan that says, this is what we want to do, and it's going to take $4 million to do it, or whatever. And that's what I'm not hearing, and I'm wondering about that. Is that the foundation, though, that would do that?
If you're talking about the building program, developing a building program to have a number saying we want this much space to do these things?
So it would be a building program? I'm just thinking about a general plan on how much money, the way you do a city budget, where you say, this is how much we're going to have, or to do some visioning. I'm wondering, is that all incorporated in the future building plan?
Well, we don't have that yet. So we're just looking towards some type of expansion in the future. What would we need to do?
So now it's...
I think I'm here, I think you're looking for probably a longer-term plan.
Yes.
And that is going to take into account all the necessary upgrades, enhancements, additions that need. And then, is it something that would be the purview of the foundation having a long-term plan?
Yes.
Or the library in our next financial plan?
That's exactly what I'm trying to get at.
And I don't know what your thinking is, but I think the board sets the tone for that. And then the foundation would be working with us on that. So it's the board's prerogative, I think.
Yes.
Okay, a couple questions. Somebody else have questions? The percentage to bring up to minimum wage that we would have to raise one group of people, will that also affect other people because we're raising the lower scale?
Not in January of 20.
But will it the following year?
That's part of what I'll get back with you on, Chris. I don't have the answer to that yet.
You would think that people will be expecting.
I think it depends on the gap between the minimum wage and the lowest and the next set of people. So if there's a $4 gap, then maybe that is not a concern. And maybe it is, because there are a number of things to consider. And compression, what you're talking about, is one of them. I'm actually attending a webinar on Thursday about this.
And the other item is, would you be able to, when you do the budget, showing materials, and we're adjusting the way the materials is calculated, could you also at that time give us what it would have been had we not? I mean, I don't want you to go to a lot of trouble.
Oh, I'm going
but-
to give you both.
Okay, because I would like to know that had we stayed with the old thing, we're still at 12% or something.
Yeah.
This board has fought long and hard for the 12% rule to keep program materials at 12%. And now that we're throwing in things that we didn't before, we're going to be raising that, and I want to see whether we're still staying close to materials without the cost of the circulation, or what, no, what would you call
The
it?
interlibrary loan, the stamps, the stickers, the materials, the
yeah,
staff
that's
time.
it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to give you something so you can look at apples to apples
Yeah.
as well as what other
Okay.
libraries across the street are doing as well percentage-wise. And also the state has said a range of 8 to 12% is where they're looking at. So you as a board get to choose where you want to put your money.
And see, the complaint has been about this library versus Champaign. We never have the materials, you know. We don't have a budget that affords us to have 8 copies of a new book or anything like that. So we're always kind of under the gun. And so our board has always kind of said, let's keep it as high as we can for materials and adjust the other things. But this is going to change that picture.
So wouldn't some of our work on the strategic plan, now that we have a strategic plan, that would inform where we want to?
Put our emphasis.
Yes. Yes.
It
And so we did have, so if people
Yeah,
were complaining or you know,
Yeah.
casting aspersions on how we were doing things, we didn't really have a plan or anything we could point to say, explain why we made the decisions we did for how we wanted to spend our money.
And I have something to add to that, and that is, and we may have discussed this before, materials has changed because it's now not just physical things, it's also access. And I wonder if that's reflected in what the state expects. I mean, does the state of Illinois say you need 10,000 books when really that doesn't reflect access? You know what I'm saying? So what
There are
does
a
the
lot of
state?
factors, and what this shows is dollar amount spent. It's not a list of books per person.
That's what I wondered. Okay.
And how do the new guidelines treat, these access license fees? Are they counted as materials?
They're included as well. And then it's
Okay.
a collection development, not just a materials budget, it's
Gotcha.
collection
Yeah.
development writ large.
Yeah.
Which we redid to reflect some of this, as I recall. Didn't we do the collection development policy and make it really short and sweet about a year ago?
We took
Yeah,
out
not really.
more specifics,
Yeah.
because those are going into a collection development manual for staff as far as keep the medical books this long and keep
Yeah,
the
right.
books this long.
Okay, yeah.
And then, we made it broader, and we did include things like the newer collections, because we keep adding things. We want to make sure the policy has got those things included as well.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions? This is really significant to, I mean, we're moving in a different direction in a
Yeah,
way.
it's good.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Celeste. For action item, the consent agenda, we have a board minutes of January 14th, payroll of January 17th, payroll of January 31, bills of January 17, bills of January 17, B, bills for January 24, bills for January 30th, and bills for February 7. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Jane. I keep forgetting, you have to speak up. Okay, moving on to the action items. Is there any request to separate items, since we only have one item, I can't imagine, or remove? Hearing none, we will have a motion to approve the action agenda item.
I so moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those opposed, same sign. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that approved. For discussion topics, board educational topics.
Wait, 1 second, Chris. The action item, that 8.1, that is a separate action item.
Oh, you're right. It was just that we approved the agenda. Yes, please tell us what you're thinking.
So I wrote this up in the director's report,
Yeah.
that we would like to hire a facilities manager with money that we have in the facilities budget. What we don't have is a salary line in there. So what we'd like to do is have someone be able to handle the day-to-day hands-on maintenance work, as well as to work with the custodial company and work with the different vendors that we need to, and do the big projects for us as well, deal with the RFPs, the staff parking lot, the windows, all those pieces and parts. So since I don't know when the person would start, we have a desired wage range that we would like to hire into, but since I don't have an exact number to give you to put in that line, I can't ask you for a budget amendment, but what I would like is the permission to post a position, knowing that it will be money from the facilities line, not moving any money around.
Is the part-timeness up to it the fact that we're in the middle of the year? Is that part of the reason? Or
No.
you think it'll be a part-time position?
It will be a part-time
Okay.
position.
Oh, okay. I get, that's related to my question. So the city has a way to move money that, for salary from a line that could get smaller? You know what I'm saying? It's like, how would the management, would that halftime position remain in the facilities budget, or would it go into a salary line?
So within the facilities budget,
Yes.
as with the 805, there are multiple budget lines.
Okay,
One is
there's
for
a-
repair and maintenance, one is like for
Okay,
utilities, and
that's-
centralized. So
Okay.
within the couple of lines that have to do with building maintenance and repair,
Okay.
there is enough money. Again, we're paying a maintenance person to do maintenance work.
I guess-
So if we
yeah, I-
hired a person, we would have that person do that work.
Okay,
And that
that's-
we would find some money in other places later for the full year for next year.
Okay.
And use the money in facilities to have the facilitation done.
I move that we authorize the posting of this position.
Is there a second? Oh, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Thank you. Thank you, Jane. Board education topics, I guess that's where we are, discussion topics. Celeste, do you want to lead that off, or do you want Barbara to tell us what she's been planning, or she's been working with you? Barbara, why don't you relate to us?
We worked together and over lunch and came up with the list of topics, and would like your feedback as a board on if any of these sound particularly interesting to you, or that you'd like us to focus on, because there's a lot.
Particular new members who see a topic that we've covered before that you're not comfortable with, that you'd like for us to delve
Yeah,
into.
this came from Celeste and me, and also from the hot topics from the American Library Association. So there are 3 sources here.
I thought they all looked very interesting. I was even clicking on the links and I was intrigued, so.
Good,
I
good to
found
hear,
myself
good.
wandering.
I'm
I
glad.
thought they were all really
And
timely
as a new
topics.
board
Good.
member, are there things that
Thank
interest you
That's
that you
good to
wanted
know.
to?
Yeah.
I tried to narrow it down. I thought they were all interesting, and I thought that they were timely, so not just being a new board member, but I think that there's probably things that could be revisited.
Did any really stick out that you went, ooh, yeah?
I like the intellectual freedom, just because I think that's an interesting topic.
Barbara loves that.
I like that too.
Resilience.
So does Jane.
I like the resilience concept, just because I think it's a big, broad
Okay.
topic. Technology trends, I think, because that's constantly changing. So that was something that I think could always bring something new. So those are probably the ones that stood out the most.
Other board members had things that jumped out at them.
I was interested in safety and security. I think that's
Yeah, good topic.
I like the innovative library spaces.
Spaces, yeah. I thought that'd be good while we're planning for a new.
Yeah, I like that one.
Space,
Yeah.
space.
Well, and thinking of it thinking outside of the box. So.
Could I put in a plug for privacy and surveillance, simply because, while it's a big issue right now, but also the local ACLU is doing a lot of work on it, and I want to be able to say, I mean, I know the libraries have been working on this for decades, but I'd like to be able to say, we're really working on this over here at ACLU too, and we could work with you on this.
Would ACLU be a source for it would be a different way of looking at it.
I think we'd be a source for them, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
I think we've done a whole
Okay,
lot.
okay.
Not that they aren't doing it, but I'm really proud of what libraries have done in this area for really 2 decades, so just my opinion.
I would say the board feels that you and Celeste can continue your efforts, and you've gotten some feedback here tonight.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
But this gives us an idea of priorities, right? Okay. Thanks very much.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the capacity assessments. What time do you want to leave, John?
Oh, keep going.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
We don't have much more.
Capacity assessments, Celeste, tell me where we are at in this. You want to, paperwork, is there something involved that you'd like for the board to participate in? Staff have been participating in this.
So John and I talked, because he's got some
John,
experience with
okay.
this. And so what we'll do is talk over some different options to bring to the board. There are some topics that you have brought up as board members and that I've heard over the years. So for example, people are interested in advocacy, but maybe not everyone feels as comfortable as others doing advocacy. So that might be an area that we want to help increase the board's capacity to do work. Another area that we've talked about as a board is recruitment. So how do you physically do the recruitment? Do we need to have a little pamphlet that talks about the library and the board and what a board member's role could be? As well as when we look at the board, do we have all realtors? Do we have all librarians? Who would we want to be recruiting for the board to be representative of our community? So there's a couple different elements I know that you have mentioned are interesting to you as capacity development. And John and I will talk about some different tools that we could use to learn more about areas you think you'd like to grow as a board and as individual board members. And then you can use the tool and we can report the results back, and then you can let us know how you'd like to proceed once you've seen how people feel about the different issues.
And you and John are working out some instruments, selecting and... Okay.
Yeah, and Amanda did a bunch of research for us,
Okay.
and so I will share that with you, and we can talk through what seems like it will be beneficial to the board.
Looking forward to it.
Friends report.
Nothing new to report.
No report. Foundation is next week. I don't know of anything new other than she's told you about, and I think I told you last time about the development. I feel very strongly that this is, as Barbara has brought up, a concern. I don't feel like it's quite in the process that we've gone through. I think it's been slighted, and I think it's got to be looked at. So I'm hoping that we get someplace with that. Heartland, we have some information.
Sure. So the IHLS board nomination period closed today at 5 p.m. Ballots will be distributed for voting mid-March, so that will be coming out soon. Heartland is also doing its work to prep for the changes with regards to minimum wage. They will be partnering to offer a webinar with the Illinois State Library later this week.
Without embarrassing anybody, did we have anybody apply for the Heartland board?
I did.
Okay. I'm glad you raised your hand because I didn't want to. I knew you were interested.
Good for you.
That's great. We have had people on this board before, and I think it's held us very well to be able to have somebody on that board, because I appreciate that very much.
My pleasure.
Board and committee reports. Anything else there?
I have a follow-up as far as an administrative report. I sent you information a couple days ago from a particular advocacy organization about the potential for the ILMS budget to be cut. The IMLS put out a statement themselves today, which I emailed to you, but don't know that you have seen it. So I wanted to make sure that you've got that, and then if you want to go through and click on any links and read any things they've got, go ahead and check your TOEFL email. It is important that the IMLS be funded, so I do encourage you all to reach out to your representatives, senators, and tell them to fund the IMLS, please.
Have we been funded it has our budget funded it in any way in the past?
Money comes through the state from the IMLS, and there are all kinds of special programs.
Oh,
Do we have a dollar number? So if I write something, can we say the Urbana Free Library got blank IMLS funds?
I'm waiting for the different bodies to put out their statements. So
Okay.
IMLS has got theirs out, ALA is probably going to say something, ILA will say
Okay,
something. They will look
great.
at the money that's come from. So as soon as I have that information to share.
Maybe you could share it with the board, so if we write letters, I'm assuming individual letters is what would be good?
I would recommend that.
Yeah.
Celeste, do you know last year what happened? What was the proposal from the administration, and how does that compare to what Congress ultimately appropriated?
Well, ultimately, they did appropriate more money for the IMLS.
Yeah,
So-
that's not the only example. So
Do you know
this is
what,
probably not worth the paper it's.
It may not, you're right.
do you know what
Yeah.
the total IMLS funding for the country was last year?
I don't remember the number. I can get it for you. It's probably right in your hands, but I don't have it.
Okay, we got, I'm sure it's available, like everything.
There was a link that's in there that I sent the other day that takes you into the actual budget appropriation document, and it says what it was this fiscal year, and then the zeros.
And again, like you were saying, I mean, I heard a presentation this morning about the budget for national security, and it's going to change. I mean, that's the
absolutely
thing.
gonna change.
But at some point, like I know how ALA feels about this, at some point you want to say, we're watching this, and we care. And the question is timing, and I don't know. I just don't know about this.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we shouldn't be vigilant. It just means
Yeah.
it's helpful to know what's the game that's being played.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and moving on down the list, we're ready for a closed session. Do I have a motion for us to go into closed session to discuss item 14.2, the purchase or lease of a real property for the use of public body?
So moved.
Second.
You
Do you want to read it?
You have to finish pursuant
I think,
to,
oh. Would you read it, Barbara?
pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C5. Finishing
Okay,
it.
that's it. All those in favor
I
of,
need a second, I'm sorry.
we have to go for
Second.
Okay, thank you.
roll call, right?
Yes, but I need my first and second, I got it. Okay. Barbara? Here. John?
Present.
Ben?
Yes, aye.
Yeses.
Here.
These are ayes.
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Barbara Jo?
Yes.
Okay, Jane?
Okay, Jane, we're going to carry you into the closed session.